share pain with my brother, share gain with my brother. Would anything for my brother. I would ride for my brothers, die for my brothers. If it's live through the times, every side for my brothers. Fill the stage with my brother, wreck the game with my brothers. Stay the same, never switched up, never changed on my brothers. I would ride for my brothers, die for my brother. I would ride for my brothers, die. You where my niggas at?
The greatest weapon against hate and oppression taught me how to think and check it, cause it was really correction. Trying to make me better, will I forget it? Nigga, never. That's the reason I don't fall under pressure, cause brother wouldn't let me. My brothers will protect me from my enemies, by any means necessary. So when the iron starts to sharpen the steel, let's keep it real. Who gon' beat you if you ain't had a decent meal? Now I remember learning who we from is, from this Puerto Rican kid who loved me more than my own people did in the midst of the struggle. Somehow I ran into another that taught me who did the will of the Father. That was my brother. As we continue to struggle, we gon' do it together. I guess that's what made me and my niggas special. Another level, we gon' take it too. Mexicans, Haitians, and Jamaicans too. The God you brought have forsaken you is awakened.
Share pain with my brother, share gain with my brother. You needed that God to know it ain't a thing for my brother. I would ride for my brothers, die for my brothers. If it's live through the times, every side for my brothers. Fill the stage with my brother, wreck the game with my brothers. Stay the same, never switched up, never changed on my brothers. I would ride for my brothers, die for my brother. I would ride for my brothers, die. You where my niggas at? Dead before the sign, I learned this shit from Johanna. So fuck them little problems you got with your baby mama. Any child, the trauma, or any eviction drama. Gird up thy loins, my nigga, engrave your armor. It's a war zone, a man for all seasons. Keep the wardrobe, never speaking subliminals. Nigga, there ain't no Morse code. All my niggas is diligent, all my niggas is militant, all my niggas is radical, all my niggas fanatical, well trained and tactical, universally practical, moving like we're mechanical, never taking sabbaticals. Every word is factual, killing this shit so casual. Do this for my chief George, Jerusalem, the capital. If I ever lose my nerve or start to doubt, I pray my tongue cleaves up to the roof of my mouth. Let my hand lose its cunning, I can't win in the bout. I'm one west to the death of when them chariots out. I share pain with my brother, share gain with my brother. You needed that guy to know it ain't a thing for my brother. I would ride for my brothers, die for my brothers. If it's live through the times, step inside for my brothers. Fill the stage with my brother, wreck the game with my brothers. Stay the same, never switched up, never changed on my brothers. I would ride for my brothers, die for my brother. I would ride for my brothers, die. You where my niggas at?
Wing with my nigga, serve the king with my nigga, bust the thing with my nigga, bada bang for my nigga, lose your spleen for my nigga, get cream with my nigga, hitting colors, hitting figures, dark skin, scruffy bed, like skin red bed, that's a nigga overhead. Don't be tripping overhead, cause we gripping overhead, blow the sniffing overhead, 33 up in the shot like I'm flipping overhead, yeah, we pimping overhead, bitches grinning overhead, cause we clicking overhead, or you dripping in the bed, shorty dripping in the bed, talking give and get head, and we love to bust lead when the blood all red and the body all dead, but my niggas all safe, we gon' get back to the place, that's exactly how we should, cause the temple is the hood, straight back, straight feet, that's exactly how we stood, if in the coat up off my back, pants, belt, and the strap, for my
pain with my brother, share gain with my brother. You needed that guy to know it ain't a thing for my brother. I would ride for my brothers, die for my brothers. If it's live through the time, step inside for my brothers. Fill the stage with my brother, wreck the game with my brothers. Stay the same, never switched up, never changed on my brothers. I would ride for my brothers, die for my brother. I would ride for my brothers, die. You where my niggas at?
All right. Shalom Yasha. This is the Isupk. Started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York in 1969. We are under commanding General Yohana. And we are here to teach the truth of the Bible and that blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians are the real Israelites that the Bible speaks of. Always has been, always will be. And we are going to show the truth to y'all today. Today, our class is on the 12 tribes of Israel themselves. The 12 tribes of Israel. We don't think about this when we grew up in the Christian church. Who are those sons that grew up under the man Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel? Who were those men? Who are those people that we know as today? That's what we are here to find out today, because we don't know these things when we grow up in the Christian church, when we grow up in the world, because they don't understand how to teach these things. It was not given to them. But thank the Most High that the Isupk is here and prevalent. And my goodness, are we out here with the best scholarly minds on the planet? Because we have put together the articles, the facts, all the things that you need to know and understand that this is the truth, that there is nothing that can refute this truth. We got scholars in this school, scholars that have put together books, scholars that have put together all the things that you need to learn this things, so learn this truth. So when it comes down to these classes, it is imperative that you take notes. It is imperative that you share these classes on your pages to spread this truth out, because it's supposed to be spread. It's not supposed to be kept up in some box. It's time for us to come back to our culture, and there is nothing that's going to stop it. You understand? We're going to come out here and we're going to teach this truth because we are the real Israelites that the Bible is talking about in these records. There's no refuting it. From the 12 tribes of Israel in the Bible, when you read these tribes that say Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Simeon, Zebulun, Ephraim, Manasseh, Gad, Reuben, Asher, Naphtali, and Issachar, we don't know who they are in today's time, but we do know that the nation of Israel grew from these 12 tribes. So we know that there is an abundant nation under these people, that these people have spread and grown across this planet. Also, that there are other people on this planet that are not from these tribes. And it's important to know who is from these tribes and who isn't. So we're here to introduce to you today the lost 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, and also go over some further information to digest and understand specifically what it takes to get to the understanding that these are the real Israelites the Bible is talking about, that it's talking about the Native American Indians, that it's talking about the so-called black man that was brought over here on slave ships, that it's talking about the indigenous population of North, Central, and South America. You understand? This is something that the world has been trying to keep secret for a long time, and that secret is coming out. And because it's coming out, you have the opportunity to change your life. You have the opportunity now to wake up to this truth if you are on this chart, if you are on the 12 tribes chart. And mind you, the 12 tribes of Israel is a very vast nation that's been scattered all over the planet, that's been scattered amongst all different nations of people. So we are to be sifted out from among these nations and waking up to the truth, because the Spirit of the Most High is starting to dwell on Israel these last days, and it's starting to awaken us and quicken us to give us the strength to come back to our former selves. Gives us the inspiration to see the past and put these things together and completely understand exactly what your role is in this life. No longer will you be running around afraid of what you're going to feel the next day, not knowing what your purpose is on this earth. No longer are you going to run around scared with your tail between your legs because somebody is out to get you, because you're afraid that somebody's going to fire you, or you're afraid that somebody's going to leave you for somebody else, or you get afraid over every little thing in this world. And it's time for us to get back to our former strength, because when we do that, there is no stopping us. So let us start with the very beginning. And today, again, we're talking about the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. It's important for us to know who our elders are, what our identity is. Are we supposed to be called savages like they say that our Native Americans were when they studied us, when they came over to America? Were we supposed to be considered looters and rioters when you talk about us in the courtrooms, to where we're not even allowed to be called victims when we get shot in the streets? Are we supposed to be known as those types of people? Are we supposed to be known as thugs and criminals and rapists? Is that really who we are? We're supposed to find out today in class just exactly how important our role is on this earth, and also what we're supposed to be doing on this earth. So let's get started. We're going to begin with the book of Deuteronomy chapter 27 and verse 1. Deuteronomy chapter 27 and verse 1. It reads, "And Moses with the elders of Israel commanded the people, saying, Keep all the commandments which I command you this day." And we're about to get into some of these commandments, but you have to understand that this was given to the Israelites. These were commandments, that the commandments that the Most High presented for us were commandments that were presented to Moses and the elders of Israel. Much like how when you grow up in your family, the people that are in charge of your family, the people that lead everybody to do certain things, are the elders in the family, are the ones that have been there and done that and lived their life, that have the knowledge and understanding to actually carry that influence into the next generation. And it's no different here. Our people have always been like this. It just so happens that Moses was given the commandments for us to follow, and that in doing so, he made sure that all the leadership amongst our people were getting ready to follow suit. They were getting ready to spread this truth to us so that we can continue that heritage that the Most High bestowed upon the nation of Israel. And keep in mind, too, that this is something that's to be forever. This is something that's not supposed to be done away with. This isn't something that's supposed to be looked at and looked over and forgotten about. This is something that's supposed to be an integral part of our everyday lives, every single day. And really what it comes down to is starting to learn these things, starting to understand these things. And so what we're going to do is not only are we going to talk about some of these laws, we're going to give you examples of some of our people following these laws throughout history to further prove and solidify the fact that these 12 tribes of the nation of Israel are in fact blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, judging by our ancient culture, judging by the traditions that we followed in our historical evidence, also by the judgments and curses that we also had to undergo because of our wickedness, because of our stiff-necked rebelliousness. All right. So that's what we're going to start with. Again, reading Deuteronomy chapter 27 and verse 1. And Moses with the elders of Israel commanded the people, saying, keep all the commandments which I command you this day. Now, it is important for our people to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments throughout our generations. But what are some of these commandments that we're supposed to follow? Let's just get a small taste, a small example of some of these laws and statutes and commandments that Moses was talking about. And how does this apply to us today? Let's go ahead and get Leviticus chapter 19. Leviticus chapter 19 covers a lot of topics, covers a lot of do's and don'ts, right? And we're going to start at verse 26 because I see this all over the place in today's time. I see all kinds of things nowadays that make the scriptures more real, that make them stand out, because I look and see what our people are doing and how it goes against these precepts. And it doesn't surprise me when those very same people are calling for help and going through all sorts of issues in their lives. So let's get an example of a law that we're supposed to follow, that was given to Moses to be given to the nation of Israel. This is Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 26. Ye shall not eat anything with the blood. It says, ye shall not eat anything with the blood. You know what that means? That means you're supposed to cook your food, black man, Hispanic man. And I applaud you brothers that hold your barbecues on the weekends and cook that food damn near till it's burnt. It's got to have just a little bit of burnt in it. You know what's righteous about that? What's righteous about that is that you're cooking the blood out of the food. And the scripture tells us that we are not supposed to eat anything with the blood. But you know who does like to eat food with the blood? The so-called white man, the so-called Caucasian man. He likes his steak medium rare or just rare in general. Or they just want to bite the cow straight up like Bear Grylls does when he goes and tries to survive in the wilderness. That's how they like to roll. And in doing so, being around them so much, a lot of our people like to think that living the way he does is some sort of high quality lifestyle that's to be adored and admired. No, the law says right here in the Bible, we're not supposed to eat food with blood. And this is an example of the way that we're supposed to operate, okay? And even in today's time, we can see that our people innately have the urge to want to follow God's law because we have a feeling that cooking food all the way through is a good thing. Am I right or wrong? That's how usually it is when you're trying to barbecue, when you're trying to cook chicken, beef, when you're going out and you chilling, you going to the restaurants and you ordering your food, you want to make sure that it ain't bloody. That's what you ought to do. That's what the Bible says to do. Let's read on. Neither shall ye use enchantment or observe times. Ye shall not round the corners of your heads. Neither shalt thou mar the corners of thy beard. Now, hold on a minute. It's saying you're not supposed to shave your beard. You're not supposed to shave your head bald. You understand? That's a culture that comes from the heathen. That's something that has nothing to do with us. You take a look at some of the most renowned people amongst our nation, people that are known for cleaning their hair, shaving their beard, and causing our people to want to imitate that feminine look. Why? For the sake of trying to look like some sort of pretty boy? No. It says right here in the book of Leviticus, ye shall not round the corners of your heads, neither shalt thou mar the corners of your beards, right? Understand, the beard is a badge of manly dignity. That's by its definition. That's what a beard is to show that when you become a man, if you're one of the tribes that can grow out a beard, you ought to grow it out. You ought to let it do its thing rather than trying to trim it and shape it and line it up and do all this fancy stuff. You know what I'm saying? You're trying to round the corner of your head when you do that. And that is a law in the scriptures. It gets that specific. It is that specific. And we ought to know more and more of these laws so that we can avoid copying the customs of the other nations and appropriating their culture. We ought to follow our own culture. And we're going to find out why here in a second. But continuing here, just to cover one more, this is a very common one that you see nowadays. This is verse 28. Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 28. It reads, "Ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am the Lord." This is what the scriptures is saying regarding tattoos, regarding cuttings in your skin, which technically is what a tattoo is, because it's cutting into your skin and it's printing something on you. A lot of times our people like to do that when one of their relatives passes away. The scriptures are saying not to do that, just for the sake of trying to honor somebody that is dead, for trying to write all over your body like it's some sort of canvas. That is not what our bodies are for. And the Most High sets these things for us to follow because it is for our own good. Whether we understand it completely or not, we start to learn more and more as we start to follow these laws that these things are good for us. Certain foods that we're supposed to eat is good for us. And we follow them, we end up in a much better position because we are the kind of people that with the common sense to stay alive in this crazy world that we live in today. Because if we continue to follow the Most High's laws, you're going to see in this book that it is talking about blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians when it is talking about the good that comes from it, when it is talking about the righteousness that comes from this. Understand? So again, we just read in the book of Leviticus just a few laws. We just jumped into one tiny little paragraph in the Bible talking about the laws where it says, cook your food all the way. Don't eat food with the blood in it still. That's disgusting anyway. Why would you want to eat blood? What are you, a vampire? That's not even real. Why are you trying to follow these things, that customs that the other people are trying to do? That's not for you to follow, black man, Hispanic man. Cook your food, because Leviticus said cook your food all the way. It says not to round the corner of your heads, not to mar the corners of your beards. You know what I'm saying? When people were making fun of James Harden when he shaved his beard, and they seen a picture of James Harden with his beard gone, and he looked real strange with his beard gone, because we're so used to seeing that badge of dignity on him. That badge of dignity is his beard that he usually wears. Now, mind you, Salakia, let me make sure to say this. He does trim the top of his head, though, and tries to do the mohawk and the edge ups and stuff. But really what I'm trying to get you to understand is that there is a presence that comes from that beard. There is a presence that comes from that woolly hair that you have, black man. We read in other classes how Yahushua and the Most High himself like to rock their hair with the full glory. Think about it like a lion with its mane. Imagine you wouldn't consider the lion with its face trimmed and all neat and short hair to be the one that's in the leadership of his pride, leading all the lions around him. No, it would be the one that looks like this one right here, where it has his full mane. This is a fire lion, but you get what I'm talking about. You get to see that a fully grown animal in its prime, in its best state, allows for that natural thing to occur. And that's what the Most High is saying right here. That's what he's saying right here. And he's saying not to print any marks on your skin. This is an example of what our people need to follow. But how many people within our nation have tattoos all over their body? Why is it that our grandparents always try to tell us, whenever a Hispanic woman or a Native American or black woman goes to get a tattoo at a young age when she's barely turning 18, what does she try to do? She tries to hide it from her mama. She tries to hide it from her grandma because her grandma been trying to tell you, hey, there's just something not right about you doing that. Don't go doing that. But you go and do it anyways. But grandma didn't tell you that Leviticus chapter 19 says not to do it. See that difference there? When we have these laws that we're supposed to be following, it gives us more direct answers to everything. It gives us more reason to follow these things. Because when we do that, there is much that we can accomplish and much that we can earn from it. You're not no longer going to be relying on following after social media stars to know what looks good, to know what the standard of beauty is, because you're going to know according to your culture what's going to be the right and wrong way to do things. You're no longer going to be confused about how we're supposed to operate in this society, whether you're supposed to be straight or bisexual or homosexual. The scriptures is going to tell you how you're supposed to act. And no longer will there be confusion in this world that you see if our people come together and keep the laws that were given to Moses back in Deuteronomy. That were given to Moses back in Deuteronomy chapter 27. Now, let's go ahead and go to chapter 28 and verse 1, because we need to talk about this, Israel. We need to talk about these things in specific detail, and I would like to show you exactly some of the examples that prove to you that the Native Americans are from 12 tribes of Israel. That the blacks and Hispanics are from the 12 tribes of Israel, and there is no refuting it. And I can't wait to show y'all. Let's get into this. This is going to be Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe, to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations that are upon the face like it, above all nations of the earth. And this is a heavy point to make, because leadership and rulership is something that we have not tasted. That is not something that Israel has tasted. Right now, we're tasting death and destruction. We're tasting poverty. Our full course meal at the end of the day is oppression and destruction and confusion and monotonous that comes from having to work for somebody else all day and come home and be so tired that you don't even have time to really pay attention to your children. You don't have time to pay attention to your husband or wife or whoever it is that you in bed with. A lot of relationships are falling apart because we're too busy not following God's laws and having to deal with the consequences of not following them. So you ought to act as if you have no choice but to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments. And the scripture says right here that if we do them, that we are going to be on high above all nations, that we are going to shine on this earth as a righteous people. You understand? And I'm going to give you an example of us following the law, because a lot of people try to say that the Native Americans were savages. They try to say that they try to hide the history on just how robust their culture was. Well, we're going to read in a book real quick. There's a book right here by the author Israel Worsley, a book written in the early 1800s. It's called View of the American Indians, showing them to be descendants of the 10 tribes of Israel. Again, our class today is on blacks and Native Americans or Israelites. So we ought to show you some examples of this. I'm going to go ahead and get to page 22 in this book, and it reads as follows. Dr. Williams, in his History of Vermont, writes, in whatever manner this part of the earth was peopled, the Indians appear to have been the most ancient or the original men of America. They had spread over the whole continent from the 50th degree of north latitude to the southern extremity of Cape Horn. And these men everywhere appear to be the same race or kind of people. Now, hold on a minute. This is something that you got to understand. They're talking about the Native Americans all coming from the same people. And in the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, we understand that the 12 tribes of Salakia, the 10 tribes that migrated to this side of the globe during the time frame after the Assyrian captivity, were the ones that settled on this side of the globe and spread across North, Central, and South America. Spread across them, even with their different distinct features, there was still one thing that brought them all together. They seemed to be from the same race, and scholars in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, even today, the ones that know the truth know that they were the original people on this side of the globe, and that also they were from the same tribes. They were from the same people. Let's read on. It says, and these men everywhere appear to be the same race or kind of people in every part of the continent. They are marked with the similarity of features color, and every circumstance of external appearance. It says of the Indians, the people, men and women, although there are such a multitude of tribes or nations in such diversities of climate, appear nevertheless like the children of one father and mother. The same testimony of the striking likeness of one of the other nations with them is borne by all who have visited different tribes. Was that saying? That's saying that everybody that studied them agreed that that was true. It's saying that everybody that studied the Native American Indians were able to see that these people were actually from the same tribes. They had the same features, from the skin tone, different shades of brown, to the nose structures, the bone structures, the ceremonial customs. These are all things that we're going to get into as we read books like this and other books that we're going to bring out today. Things that are going to give you more and more facts and evidence and proof that these are the 12 lost tribes of the nation of Israel. Focusing on today mainly because we just had a wicked holiday that just passed up, Thanksgiving Day. Thanksgiving Day, I was sitting at home not doing anything. I was not hanging with family. I wasn't out eating and drinking. Thanksgiving for the nation of Israel should be considered a day of recognition of mourning, a day of destruction is what it was, because our brothers and sisters, the Native American Indians, suffered by the hands of the colonization of America and manifest destiny. They suffered at these things because every treaty that was put to make sure that there was peace amongst them and the Native Americans, those treaties got broken. And it was feasts like so-called Thanksgiving that swayed our people into thinking that there was going to be peace, that there was going to be some form of brotherhood amongst us and our soon-to-be and present-day enemy. The same people that drilled holes in the Dakota Access Pipeline. They drilled holes diagonally just to steal oil from Native American land. And I remember when this happened, this was happening exactly when Trump was becoming president. And mind you, there was Native Americans out there by the thousands trying to protect their land. Even today, they are still having their treaties broken, their land, their resources taken from them, stolen from them. This is no different than back then. But what we have to understand here reading this is that the Most High is saying that we ought to follow his laws, because when we don't, these types of things have been historically accurate and continue to be historically accurate because we're seeing it on the news every single day. We're seeing it on the news. I saw an excerpt from a news source on Thanksgiving Day of a Native American man who had grown tired of trying to teach his history to his family and the people in his community. He's gotten tired of it because he's been so brainwashed and so worn out with the culture and excitement and all of the crap that comes from them celebrating these holidays in their face every single year. They throw it in their face all over the news and the media. They put it in our children's minds at school. And these men are starting to become weary of these things. And our people in the Isupk, these brothers, these priests and prophets in the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, are here to show them the truth, to here to prove to them that because we are the Israelites, we ought to keep the Most High's laws, because when we do, we are going to overturn this society and become our own society once again. No longer are we going to be having to rely on our enemy for everything from food to clothes, places to stay, and government assistance, because the fact of the matter is, this was their land to begin with. And they were handling things beautifully. And that's what we're here to find out. We're here to read some of these examples of Israelites in history following God's laws. It reads, the color of the Indians, generally speaking, is red, brown, or copper color, differing according to climate and to high or low ground. They are universally attached to their color, thinking it an honorable mark of distinction. Hold on a minute. So he's saying that the Native Americans found themselves to be a ruddy color, a brownish color, or a copper color, different shades of brown. And that Native American people found love for their skin color. They loved their melanin that they carried in their skin. It says right here, they make use of stains prepared from plants and trees to deepen it. What's a modern day equivalent of this? I tell you who knows, our women this. Because when it's talking about using plants and herbs to deepen the colors of their skin, women do that today in the form of makeup. They trying to make themselves look beautiful. They trying to make that tone that just hits them just right when that light hits, that makes their face look even more attractive. That's why when you look at a woman that cakes on that makeup, sometimes it just looks a shade darker than her neck and her shoulders and the rest of her, because she's trying to deepen that color. Well, Native American women were doing the same thing back then because they were proud of their heritage. They were proud of that melanin in their skin and that God-given look that the Most High gave, that blessing of having that color in their skin, different shades of brown. And mind you, and just to be completely thorough, it does say this. It says, Salakia, let me get that. Let me get this part right here. It says they make use of stains prepared from plants and trees to deepen it. That's pretty much what you got to understand about that. And it says, proud of their red color. To the white people, the natives give names expressive of contempt. Often with great bitterness, they call them the accursed people. They endeavor everywhere to cultivate the copper color, but some are naturally fairer than others. And that is a precept as well. Scripture says the tribe of Ephraim is like as a cake unturned, or a lighter, fairer color than some of the other tribes. What you got to understand, though, is that it's not always about color. It's about the bloodline lineage, which is why we brought out that the Native Americans were indeed the kind of people that seemed to come from one original family. We're talking about bloodline here. But these features that they shared amongst one another are further proof that they, in fact, are the Israelites that the Bible is talking about, that we are the lost 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. The tribe of Judah is what you know today as the so-called Negroes. The tribe of Benjamin is what you now know as the West Indians. Levi, the Haitians. Simeon, the Dominicans. Zebulun, Guatemala to Panama. Ephraim, the Puerto Ricans. Manasseh, the so-called Cubans. Gad, the Native American Indians. Reuben, the Seminole Indians. Asher, which you find from the lands of Colombia to Uruguay in its indigenous population. Naphtali, which is Argentina to Chile. And of course, we can't forget Issachar, the Mexicans. I have a book here that I'm going to get into a little bit later by one of our world-renowned scholars in the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. It's called Issachar, Son of Jacob. It's a very heavy-hitting, but also easy to understand and easy to get into book because it's only 40 pages long, but every single page has such heavy material that you're just going to say, you know what? There's nothing that can refute this evidence that these are the lost 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. And it's saying right here that the tribe of Issachar are the Mexicans that we now know as today as Mexicans that come from the Aztec Empire. All right. So what we're gonna go into right now. Let's get back into this. Is we're gonna go back to the book of Deuteronomy and we're gonna read Deuteronomy 28:1, so that we can see the benefits of when we follow the Most High's laws. It says, Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe, to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations on the earth. That the Most High is going to take care of us. Keep our families together. Make sure that our children are wise. Make sure that we don't die in this world. That's the most important thing. Now, what we're going to read here is one more example. And I got to get this example because this is something that's real heavy and a direct distinction that brings the reader to understand that, yes, this is talking about the Israelites. There's no way that they would have learned this custom if they weren't Israelites in a different land. This is from, again, View of the American Indians. I'm going to go over to page 41, and I'm going to show you a custom when it pertains to the women of the nation of Israel. It says, Okay. It says this is something that you're going to see right here, where it talks about the Native American women having virtue, having cleanliness laws that they follow and customs. It says a young woman at the first change of frame separates herself from the rest in a distant hut and remains there for 7 days or longer if necessary. Her food is brought to her by a person who may not touch her, nor may she touch her food with her hands. This is what the people were studying when they were looking at the Native American Indians. They were saying they have their women, when they have their time of the month, go to a different hut to be by themselves, to make sure that their uncleanliness doesn't spread to the rest of the people that surround them in that community. What is that talking about? That is referring to chapter Leviticus, chapter 15 in Leviticus. That is the Levitical law that they're following. These Native American women are following the laws of the Old Testament. They were following the law of the Old Testament, just like how Moses was told to tell the Israelites to follow these laws. And some of those laws pertain to what you're seeing right here, pertaining to these things like cleanliness laws. I'm going to read some more. Check this out. I'm going to read that again from the top for those that are just joining in. A young woman at the first change of frame separates herself from the rest in a distant hut and remains there for 7 days or longer if necessary. Her food is brought to her by a person who may not touch her, nor may she touch her food with her hands. When the days are ended, she bathes herself in water, washes her clothes, and cleanses the vessels she has made use of. The wooden ones she cleans with hot lye made with wood ashes. Those of earth or iron she passes through the fire. So purification is going on here. The Levitical law about baptizing and washing your body after being unclean is being put at test here. Cleaning the utensils and things that you were around, like they were really in depth on this. And these are things that we ought to come back to, because those are the kinds of stuff, those are the kinds of laws that allow us to live a clean lifestyle. But nowadays, women got a room full of clothes and dirty stuff and all kinds of mess just thrown all over the floor, thrown all over the dresser. You go to the bathroom, you can't even put your toothbrush, you can't even wash your toothbrush and set it down because there's nowhere to set it, because they got all this stuff there, from the makeup to the blow dryers and all this stuff. And all you got to understand about this is that the Native American women were following the laws from the cleanliness laws that were talked about in Leviticus. And that is an example of us being proven to be the Israelites that the Bible speaks of. That the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are, in fact, the Israelites in this book. And there is no refuting these things, because as you get more and more in depth on this, you're going to see perfect examples of how we are the chosen people of the Most High. That we were trying our best to keep the Most High's laws in a land such as the Americas, where we had cultures and civilizations. And then when we were taken over, they tried to wipe us out and hide that history from us, which is just a terrible thing in itself, because those are the things that can't be redeemed from. What our enemy has done to us and trying to lie about our history is going to reign and echo forever. And the fact that our people are coming back to our culture, no matter what they've tried to do to hide this truth, this gives us the opportunity to stand strong for once and actually take our culture back. You understand? With books like this, from, big up to Captain Katazar for putting a book like this together, because he's going to start showing really heavy material in books like this. I'm going to tell you, this is just the beginning. I'm going to give you an example from this book here. Again, this is a book that just came out this past week called Issachar, Son of Jacob. You can get this digital copy off of Amazon, or you could buy the hard copy also from Amazon. Check this out. He's got a picture right here from Campeche, which is a Mayan civilization, where you have a statue, you have this engraven image right here on the wall that shows that the Native Americans did have the Shield of David on their earrings. You understand? And that's something that our people need to come back to. We need to start looking at these historical facts and say, you know what? This is, in fact, who we are. Nobody should tell us otherwise. And because now that we know the truth, We got a job to do, man. We got a nation to heal, because a lot of our people need this hearing. They need to hear this. They need to see this so that they can understand that the way that they've been living is immoral, that the way that they understand that they've been lied to their whole lives. We are not here to lie to you. We are here to tell you the truth so that you don't have to go through the mistakes that a lot of our people in the past have gone through for not following the Most High's laws. Now, let's get into that. Let's actually talk about some of those things, because this is what we see today, more so than not. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. That's what I'm see that right there? That's talking about everyday life to be Black and Hispanic. You know how many people are drugged up in the Native American community, Hispanic community? People that just can't stop putting down that drink, that bottle. They can't stop putting down that cigarette, that blunt, because that's the only thing that gets them through the day. Because all the curses that are coming upon them and overtaking them are destroying them. And that's not how it's supposed to be, man. Because they didn't know better. They weren't raised with the truth, like the way you are about to get raised with the truth. They don't have this. So how much more important is it for us to make sure that they are hearing these things? Because we have to redeem them from that state of mind. We have to redeem them from that mindset that leads them to these curses. You understand? This is what we're going to continue reading right here. Some of these curses, some of these examples of our everyday life are reflected in this book where it pertains to the curses that the Most High is putting on us because we continue to disobey him. Because we continue to go to the tattoo parlor in Vegas after getting I don't know how many drinks in you or messing around with whatever you mess with. Some hooker out there running their economy up. Our people do this. We out here going and doing all kinds of foolishness. When is that going to change, man? When are we going to actually come back to these laws, man? Out there looking like a fool, putting a mark upon yourself, putting a face of your favorite cartoon character or a name of your grandma or something like that. The Most High said, you ain't supposed to do that. I am the Lord. You ain't supposed to print no marks upon you or cut into your flesh. But we over here doing the most just to try to fit in to society. Stop trying to fit in. You ain't supposed to be fitting in. You're supposed to be above all nations that are on this earth. Let's read this again. But it shall come to pass, and you best believe it shall, that if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. What does that mean? Everywhere you go, you're going to have problems, man. Whether you in the ghetto, in the urban environment, whether you out in the country, in the wide opens of Texas and California and Arizona, whether you in the midst of the cities like New York, Brooklyn, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Florida, Miami, all these different places, doesn't matter. Whether you in the city or the field, you're going to be cursed. That's what it's letting you know first and foremost, right from the jump, that you about to get some problems, man, when you don't follow the Most High's laws. It says, I'm going to go down to verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. You know how this is everyday life for us? Because we got to work a 9 to 5. Because we got to work a 2 to 11. Or a graveyard shift, 6 to 6 in the morning. 6 p.m. at night all the way to 6 in the morning. We got to work graveyard shift. We don't get time to see our kids. And even when we do, we don't even have time to be awake to take care of them. We got to be asleep to get ready for the next day of having to go back to work. Mothers out there longing to see their kids all day, going to pick them up from daycare, knowing and finding out that that baby got scratched by some other baby at the daycare, or accidentally, a diaper rash occurring in them because the daycare people didn't even change their diaper and just left them crying in the corner for half the day before finally doing anything. But you longing to see them, and they not getting treated right, or you're not even getting to see them ever again when our women, and especially Native American and Hispanic women, get kidnapped and sold into sex trafficking and slavery amongst the world, across the whole world. And this is disgusting. But I actually pulled up some statistics here just to show you just exactly what this scripture is talking about. Again, it says, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. I just looked up an article before class, and it was telling me that there is anywhere between 15,000 to 50,000 women that are sold into sex trafficking. And this is on a yearly basis. And that 40% of these women being sold into sex trafficking are Native American women. 83% of them are U.S. citizens, a lot of them minorities, most of them minorities. Don't you think their parents are longing for them all the day long and failing to find them? Don't you think that this has been enough of this? We ought to keep the Most High's laws, because things like this are going to keep happening. And it's terrible to even say these things, that it is continuing to happen, because the Most High is bringing upon us judgment for not keeping his laws, man. And you ought to follow these things and teach your children to stay in this truth, to come back into these laws, statutes, and commandments before they end up getting sold into bondage overseas. And I'm reading in these articles that these young women are being brutalized and sexually abused and raped. Some of them surviving to come back home and tell the story, traumatized for the rest of their life. Traumatized to the point to where they can't go one day without smoking a blunt or popping a pill or wanting to kill themselves because of all the horrors that they had to deal with in that particular time frame. It's terrible, man. Those out you that have kids, you got to understand just the kind of world that we live in now, and also understand that the Most High is in charge over all of it. And he's also in charge over you. And when you don't follow what he told you to do, there are consequences for it. So I suggest that you get with the program before it's too late. I suggest that you get yourself right and clean up before you end up just like how the Native American women did when the Native Americans stopped worshiping the Most High the right way. We got overtaken. We're the ones that are buried under the Alamo right now by the thousands, while they commemorate their so-called heroes that tried to defend that terrible place. A place where they converted us into Catholicism. A place where they converted Native Americans to have regular average names just like everybody else instead of their real cultural names. A place where they tried to erase us of our language and our identity and our culture. Do you understand that this is the world that we're living in right now? Or do you want to stay asleep and pretend like everything's all good? Because it ain't all good. Because we continue to die in these streets every single day. We continue to get put in the prison system every single day. But thanks to the Most High, we got men and women that are willing to teach, men and women that are willing to change, even when they're in the prison system. Even if they've gone through terrible sexual advances from people that they did not want messing with them. Even if they've gone through terrible things in their life, or been a drug dealer, or been a murderer, or been a robber, that they can really change themselves. It's not late. It's not too late, because you're still alive right now. That you still have the chance to change these things, because these curses are going to continue to whoop you until you're destroyed completely. Don't let it get to that point, man. Stand up for yourself and stand up and be a righteous person and coming into this truth and start turning yourself around and stop smoking weed and stop selling drugs or stop selling your body over the internet on TikTok and OnlyFans and doing all this goofy mess to try to make $1 in this kingdom that runs off of money, that causes you to err because of your need for money. Don't you know that's a curse too? We're going to read it. We got to read it. We definitely going to get into this. Again, verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. When our people were sold on slave ships, and the children were separated from their mothers, just like how the children are separated from their parents down at the border of Mexico, even to this day, trying their best to stay alive and escape the oppression and poverty that's in their land right now. Try to come over here and live a different life in hopes that America is some sort of wonderful place, only to find out the grass is not greener over here. It's also doo-doo brown. It's also terrible looking over here because our people are oppressed just the same. And they're put in cages, man. And they're separated from their families, just like they were back in the 1600s, in the 1700s. History has been echoing itself for far too long. Part of that history is you not following the Most High's law, statutes, and commandments. And now that's going to change. Now we are going to make sure. And if you don't, then you will die again, just like you did before. We're going to come into this book and we're going to find out more and more that this is talking about us, because once that's cemented in your mind, there is no leaving your nation, because now you know who you are and you know what your purpose is on this earth. You're no longer going to let every little matter that's going on in your life take over you and destroy you and put you down and depressed, because this is what you need to get your power back. This is what you need to get your strength back. This is what our people have been needing for hundreds of years, thousands of years. But it all starts with us being unified in these 12 tribes. It starts with us coming back unto the one fold and making sure that we do this the right way this time. Not half-assed like we did when we were Native Americans. Not like we did back even in the land of Israel, where our elders and our teachers and our kings fell apart and split us up. We are now under the Israelite school of UPK so that we can continue to raise up this truth amongst these 12 tribes. And there is nothing that's going to stop us from that. It says in verse 48, therefore, and this is again another one of the curses that it's talking about. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And we have to go to our enemies today to get food to eat, to get clothes to wear. Whenever you go in to buy Jordans, even when you buy it from so-called Jordan, you still got to go and buy it from the white man's mall, from his stores that he owns, his Foot Locker, his Just for Feet. If y'all remember Just for Feet, his Finish Line. He's still getting and even if it was a black-owned business, he's still taking a little bit off the top, because taxes is what, 8.25%. He's always gonna get his. You always got to pay the piper. You always got to make sure that he gets his tributes. This is not any different. That is just typical Roman society that we are still under today. This is no different, man. The Most High said that we were going to serve our enemies. Next time you work as a waiter at a restaurant and you have to serve that white couple and they mad at you because you put too much seasoning on their food, or you didn't put enough milk in their coffee, and she give you a low tip just because of the pride of her heart, saying that, oh, you weren't a good enough slave for me. That echoes in history. That's the same thing as when you were a house Negro having to pass the food on the left side and take it from the right side. Otherwise, they was going to whip you and send you back outside to where the rest of them were. And in the meantime, they was still separating families, still raping and pillaging, and doing all sorts of madness the Most High sent towards us for our wickedness as well. And this is what we have to reverse. We got to reverse these curses, man. We got to be the nation that stands up. We got to be the generation that steps in and says, enough is enough. I've learned my lesson, Lord. It's time for us to come back to what we're supposed to be. We're about to do the damn thing like it's supposed to be. We're about to come back to our culture completely this time. But we're seeing echoes of it in history that prove that it is us that is trying to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments. I'll give you another example of something from this really heavy book that was just brought out. I want to get into the tribe of Issachar, since this book is based off of Issachar, and that it echoes in the scriptures and when it talks about these things. I want to come into this real quick. Let me get verse 31 real quick. Salakia. Let me get this page right quick. Again, those of you that are tuning in just now, make sure that you're writing these precepts down. Make sure to get a notebook, a pen, a pad, the King James Bible, because we're reading straight from the King James Bible, the Bible that your pastor was afraid to read because he didn't know how to read Old English style. The one that they say is too confusing to read. That's the one we're reading, and we're reading it just like we would any other thing that we write, any other way that we talk, any other hip hop song that we listen to where we put our own flavor on it. When you read the King James Bible, you're reading the flavor and speech of our ancestors, and it resonates with us because we agree with it, and we have the same exact style even today. When we take any language, we turn it into something that we like to make simplified for ourselves. And here we are in 2021 reading in English. That ain't our original language. Come on now. This page right here is referring to the book of Genesis, chapter 49 and verse 14. It says, Issachar is a strong ass couching down between two burdens. We know that the tribe of Issachar are the Mexican tribes, the Mexicans. Israel is known for having standards. Standards are symbols that represent each tribe of the nation of Israel. The standard of the house of Issachar is a donkey, right? And known for carrying heavy work and being intricate and performing tasks of labor. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? That is exactly what a donkey does. He carries stuff and he's useful and he's always putting in work. Stop thinking about Shrek. We're talking about an actual donkey here. You know what I'm saying? Hispanics are the same way. They're the hardest working people that you've ever met. Hardest working people. They ain't complaining about having to work, whether they got a foot ache or a back ache or an earache or a headache or cancer. I got an uncle. I got family on my mom's side of the family, Hispanic men that would work even with his back literally broken, where he has to wear a plate, and he's still working. Now that's a donkey crouched between two burdens, if you ask me. With the cancer, still trying to take care of his family to his last breath. That's Issachar, man. Those little brothers that you see building all these houses out here with these new neighborhoods being developed. These $400,000, $600,000 homes that they building just to get enough scratch to go put food on their table at the end of the day. That's Issachar, man. And we are serving our enemies in this kingdom because of those curses that the Most High put on us. That same Issachar putting in all that work. The last thing that he gets to do at the end of the day is have his Modelo, his 6-pack of Modelos, of Bloodweiser, his chosen drink, to just sit back and relax and just pray that he gets to live to see another day, to fight to see another dollar. That's Issachar, man. It's talking about it right here in this book. That's definitely what it's talking about right there. It also says in that same verse, in that same chapter, it continues and it reads, and he saw that rest was good, and the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute. And we're talking about the tribe of Issachar today. We're talking about the tribe of Issachar right here. It says the siesta which was a time period of rest that was adopted by the inhabitants of Spain, of Mexico. Our brothers and sisters were and still are the true innovators of the siesta and have become servants for hire. These diligent workers have taken on the burdensome task that most people wouldn't even think to perform. While being compensated much less than the average wages, they have also crossed over the American border at the peril of being locked in a cage, all to create a better life for their families. Come on, man. Now that is an ass cross between two burdens. What are your two burdens? Having to deal with being a slave in America, or having to deal with an even more poverty situation in the land of Mexico or in the land of South America? They are literally in between two burdens, and yet they are willing to work. They are willing to build. They're willing to fight every single day to make sure that their families are safe, that they are taken care of. I got to say big up to the tribe of Issachar for being that way. It's brothers like them that build nations, brothers like them that build societies and advanced civilizations. They come from the Aztecs. They built the largest civilization on this side of the globe hundreds of years before any white man set foot on this side of the globe, and get no credit for it, and don't get remembered for it, and instead get locked in cages and put and displayed as the bad guy, as looters and rioters. Are you kidding me? Well, here we are in San Antonio. Most of our people that are here have been indoctrinated to following after Thanksgiving Day. They're gearing up for Christmas. They're gearing up for the next Cowboys game. When are we going to wake up and follow back into our own culture? When are we going to stop letting these things distract us from what needs to be done? Because we have been servants for hire for far too long. We have been serving our enemies for way far too long. Wouldn't you say it's time for us to take this seriously? Let's read again. It says, verse 48, therefore thou shalt serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. That's slavery, man. That's living check to check. That's having to live off of food stamps to barely get by, to where half of your wages after the taxes are taken out go towards paying your rent for a place that's not even maintained properly because there's roaches running around everywhere. There's water leaks. The AC ain't working. Like how much more do I got to get descriptive into this for you to see the picture? This is everyday life for us, man. This is common situations for us. It says, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck till he have destroyed thee. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, as swift as the eagle flieth. This nation right here. This nation is what it's talking about right here. Because every single empire of the Caucasian culture is represented by the symbol of the eagle. From the Germans, the double-headed eagle, to the Romans, if you go further back, the British Empire, America, it ain't no different. The national bird is an eagle. You look at the dollar bill, it's got an eagle on it. They said when they landed on the moon, the eagle has landed. They exalt themselves as the eagle. And so it is almost like the Most High is giving you a foreshadow and a quick hint when he says, as swift as the eagle flieth, because that's how fast they took things over when they finally set foot in America and tried to pretend that they were our friends, try to pretend that they could have peace with us, try to celebrate Thanksgiving, a day of giving thanks and pretending that everything's all cool, when in the meantime, they're trying to stab you in the back, but they smiling in your face. And they proud of it too. They proud of it in today's standards. They're blindly proud of what they've done because they're so used to their of being on top of us, being on top of our neck, having their knee and their foot over our neck, and us having yokes of iron around our neck, be it physically during the slave trade or spiritually and mentally, after we've been indoctrinated by their country, after we've been taught over and over by them to live the way that they live. And that's the only time they're actually nice to you, when you're like them. You ever talk to somebody that says, "Oh, I have black friends"? You ever talk to a one of these oppressors when they try to say that, "Oh, I'm not racist. I don't feel that way towards them." The people that they like are the ones that are saying "Merry Christmas" back to them. The people that they like are the ones that say Happy Easter back to them, Happy New Year's, Happy 4th of July, Happy Halloween. All these cultures, all these different events that they like to follow, all these feast days that they like to honor. We're only friends with them when we follow their customs. Well, what about when you're going to follow your customs, black man, Hispanic man? When are you going to take this stance of being in this truth? And instead of you trying to fake your way through your life and then fake your way through your family gatherings and pretend like everything's all cool in your workplace amongst all your people that try to tell you to follow the same customs of them, when are you going to stand out and be that thing that changes the world instead of going with the flow? It's time for us to wake up, man. It's time for us to come back to the truth, because we are going to continue to suffer these curses until we do. And it's righteous men in the ISUPK that are showing the way, that are actually doing the example rather than just telling you what to do. We are what we do. And if that's the case, then let me be righteous. Let me actually keep these laws that it's talking about. Grow out that beard, man. Make sure you cook that food all the way through, because you should be honored to know that it is a good thing when you do that. It is a good thing for you to lay off of the drink every now and then, because drinking too much is going to be bad for you anyways. Stay away from those. Stay away from the smoking and all the foolishness that comes from these drugs and things that you see in your community. When you come into the age of like 14, 15, 16, in that high school stage, it's almost like clockwork how quick everybody's influenced to want to party and do drugs, and how coincidental that it is tied straight into all these customs. All these customs like Halloween and Thanksgiving. All these customs like Christmas and Valentine's Day and Mother's Day and Easter. That you are actually falling prey into these without even knowing just how wicked it is. But there are some of you that know in the back of your mind growing up, had just a feeling that something was off, that something wasn't right about living that way. And now you know why it is. Because now with all of the historical facts and evidence, and of course the main historical evidence, these curses and blessings that it's talking about in the Bible about the children of Israel, that this is really talking about us, that there is no refuting this evidence, and that when we come back to these things, we are going to continue to build our nation up. You understand? And it's done brick by brick. It's done when we actually lock into this. All right. Continuing, it says, "And the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young." This nation bashed our children against, took our children and threw them to gators in the lakes. Took our young and beat them till they were dead when they were crying and getting on their nerves. Raped our women when all the men, when most of the men had either been brought into captivity or killed by the sword or so-called weapon that they have today, which is the rifle, the gun. You understand what I'm saying? They look for every unfair advantage in warfare to try to make sure that they don't have the chance to lose, because they can't fight with honor. They don't show favor to the old or the youth. They don't have an honor system. They don't do that. They never did. They never actually cared to have honor in their societies. The only thing that they found honor with was just making sure that they won their war. That's why when Columbus and them came over to this side of the globe, they had no idea how to live on this land. They had to fake being nice until we gave them the chance to try to survive on here before they broke broke their treaties with us and backstabbed us. That's the kind of person we're dealing with. We're dealing with the nation as swift as the eagle flieth. We're dealing with the nation of fierce countenance. A fierce countenance is when a policeman pulls you over and is looking at you just because you're dark skinned and is looking for a reason to put handcuffs on you just because he don't like the way your nose is big. He don't like the way your hair is made. He don't like the color of your skin. And he's profiling you because of it, because he has a fierce countenance. And that spirit has been in that person no matter how many times they've been on this earth. That goes all the way back to those cultures that deal with the eagle, that deal with that symbolicism. You understand? This is no different. We're just in a different time frame, but you're seeing the exact same thing happening. You see it happen when George Floyd had when the cop had his knee on George Floyd's neck, had a fierce countenance right there. When the cop was choking Alston Sterling for selling a loose cigarette on the street, that was a man of fierce countenance right there. That was an oppressor right there. Somebody that doesn't regard somebody that can't breathe. They don't regard the old or the young. They shooting kids with play toy guns. They shooting kids with bags of Skittles in their hands. You understand what I'm saying? You can't even have a toy water gun. And they're going to shoot you because they just looking for a reason to. Their spirit is looking for a reason to. And then their court system supports them, and a lot of times they get away with it. They get away with going to a place that doesn't belong to them and shooting random people in the crowd and being the aggressor. They get away with it in the court system when they're only allowed to refer to the victims as looters and rioters, to the point where it completely masks the entire situation to make them look like they're the protector of society, that they're the V for Vendetta, the what do you call it, the Good Samaritan, so to speak. I'm thinking of the word. It escapes me right now. But what you got to understand about these scriptures is that the Most High is being specific right now about the people that are going to come, that are going to take us over when we do not keep our laws, when we don't keep them. You understand? Now, I'm going to get another example too, because we're just getting started on these examples, honestly. I want to talk about one of the most important ones. We had brought this out before, but I want to bring this again just to reiterate one thing. It says, view of the Native American Indians, showing them to be descendants of the 10 tribes of Israel. This is talking about the role of the women of the household in the Native Americans' times and how it echoes their attempt to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments because they were afraid of the Most High giving them judgment. Though it did still happen, their effort was proven in history that this is who we are. Check this out. It says, the women are expected to take upon themselves all the household work, the men reserving themselves for war or for the chase. Talking about the hunt, right? Hunting for food. The women are treated with respect so long as they conduct themselves with propriety. Even the greatest decorum is observed on all occasions towards them. Even to female prisoners, no violence is ever offered, not the least indecency. Their persons are sacred. What does that mean? Their persons are sacred. It's talking about their flower, their privates. They're sacred. The Native Americans, we were a people of honor. We were not savages. We were not putting people into sex trafficking by the thousands. We were not committing abortions. We were treating our women like princesses. We were taking care of them. We were making sure that we were providing for them. We were protecting them from wild animals. We were protecting them from other, from being attacked and taken and hurt. And even if they were captive, because tribes they fought against each other. They didn't have unity back then. But even when we did those things, we still showed a level of decency towards the women. Where is that today? Where is that gone? I don't see it anymore. You barely see it anymore. Now you're seeing couples yelling and fighting in the streets, yelling and fighting with the kids screaming in the chair at the restaurant, arguing about this and that or whatever they're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? It gets so crazy that it's such an everyday thing for us to be indecent towards one another. And the scripture says we're supposed to be protective of our families. We're supposed to be protective of our tribes. And in here, we're actually seeing examples that this is actually who we are. Blacks and Hispanics and Native American Indians. We are not people that are abusive and brutal towards women. That is not what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be protective of them. And we are reading an example of us being that way towards our women. And in doing so, our women, let's read. But we are told on the authority of a Spanish priest that on the Oronco, if a woman is caught in the act of adultery, she is stoned to death before an assembly of the people, after the manner of the ancient Jews. Come on now. It don't get much more exact than that. You talking about adultery and then they get stoned? That's a Native American custom. That's a Native American custom, man. Which means what? That is an Israelite custom. Because the Native Americans, the North American Indians, are from the tribe of Gad, right? The Seminole Indians, that's a tribe right there. The Aztecs, the Mayans, these are different tribes. But we had these similarities, and these were things that we fell away from as time went on. But there were still hints of this led throughout history. And when we pick up on these things, it should solidify that in your mind. It should seal your mind and that this is the truth. And there is no other truth other than this. There is no other form of history that can fool you when you watch a movie, when you read a book, when you're in school, and they tell you some lie about who we are. Or about who they are. No longer is it going to affect you because you're reading more and more that this book here is more and more real as we continue to get closer to our heritage. Now, it reads, the ordinary character of the young women in their first interactions with the Europeans was that they were modest in their deportment and strictly virtuous. Both young and old were highly offended at any indecent actions or even expressions. They were neat and clean. Okay, so it's saying the Native American women were so neat and orderly and virtuous that they weren't trying to flaunt themselves off, try to come across like some sort of whore. You know why? Because they feared the Lord. There was a point in time where they feared the Most High to the point where they actually took in consideration the way that they presented themselves. Nowadays, you have a lot of women, I'm not saying all women, but a lot of women, they putting themselves on the internet half naked just for everybody to see, just for a like or a retweet or whatever it is that brings them attention because they are looking for that attention, but they're looking for it in the wrong way. And the thing about that is, that's not how they're supposed to be. We're reading right here about the Native American women not even wanting to. They don't need. They're so shameful in the sense, in a good sense, that even when you try to look at them a certain type of way, they get real shy about it. You know what I'm saying? Like there ain't nothing wrong with that. That's a righteous thing for a woman to be that careful. You know why? Because that's the kind of woman that's protected by her father. That's the type of woman that is protected by her brother. Ultimately, that's the type of woman that doesn't get kidnapped and brought into sex trafficking, like we read about earlier, where they said that over 20 to 50,000 women have been sold into sex trafficking over the past few years. Come on, man. We've changed from what we originally were in the scriptures. And we've seen the degradation of us when we integrate with a society that pushes for us to follow to be like those other nations. We are not supposed to be like those other nations. We're not supposed to follow their way of life. We're supposed to keep these laws, because when we do these things, when we live a clean life, when we live a decent life that has virtue, like what we're reading right here, there is protection in that. There is safety and happiness in that. There's blessings in that. That's what we're looking for, man. That's what our women should want. They should want a man that's willing to stand up and be an example for them, to show them these laws, to show them the cleanliness laws, show them the law about having to stay clean and stay separate for 7 days. That's what happens when we had our own land. And they took that land from us. Now, reading again, it says, but there are 2 vices before which female modesty prostrates itself and is abandoned. Listen good. Drinking and gaming. The former of these have been the bane of the Indian women. It has been the deadly plague of the Indian men. Now, is alcohol an unlawful thing to have? No. But the drunkenness and the lifestyle of being a drunk and continuing to overindulge like that could be the bane of our existence. And they even studied us and saw that our women were virtuous until they were too drunk to think straight. That's no different than you and your homegirls going to the club to have a good time back when you were 17 or 18 years old, just because you wanted to go out and have fun, but you weren't thinking about being protected by a brother. You weren't thinking about, because you were just too busy on wanting to game and drink, to play games and take part in society and flirt and do all this kind of stuff. This is the kind of thing that led to our downfall, man. Because like fools, men easily fall prey to seeing that weakness in a woman and want to try to think that that's the kind of woman that they can go after and get, with no due process, no dowry, no spousal period. Like, it's such a backward society at this point that we have fallen away from the virtues that we had from before. But we can gain those virtues back when we come back to our culture. And so when we're showing you in these precepts from Deuteronomy, okay, we're showing these precepts and we're showing you these passages from scholarly books like this one right here, or like the other one from our captain, like I said, who just dropped this on Amazon. Captain Katazad dropped this one on Amazon this week. Books like this, once we start getting books into the mind of the youth, to get that truth back out and to make it more popular and make it more regular, then we can reverse this brain washing that's occurred amongst our people, this indoctrination that's caused us to fall into their society's wickedness. And in doing so, we can reverse those curses that have been put on us. We can reverse them. That's the ultimate goal here. We're showing you these curses, not because we're trying to say, oh, this is how it's always going to be. We're showing you this because it proves that this is you. And it also proves that we are going to get you out of these curses, because we now know and we have the blueprint to follow the Most High the correct way now. We are in the midst of the Feast of Dedication. We're in the middle of a feast day that the Most High ordained. We did not celebrate Thanksgiving and Halloween recently. We're keeping the Most High statutes and commandments. Last week, my mother and my father had a yard sale. You know what they sold? They got rid of all the Christmas ornaments that they had. They got rid of the, if I were them, I'd just throw it away. But they're Hispanic. They're going to try to pinch every penny that they can. They got rid of the Christmas tree. Brakataya Hawaya how shy. You know why? Because how heavy is it for somebody to make a step in the right direction? If we would just make a step in the right direction, if we all take a step, that step will be loud enough for the whole world to know, the whole world to see. When we stop celebrating Christmas and we stop celebrating New Year's and all these things that bring our oppressor more money, because we got to go to them for food and clothes anyways, we might as well stop giving them extra money. We already pay them enough through all the taxes, where they take Where they take like 20% of your paycheck? Don't they have enough of your money already? Go ahead and not celebrate Christmas now. Don't worry about it. That's more money in your pocket to make sure you got enough for your rent. Stop buying these drugs off of these people that ultimately get their resources from the oppressor. They get these resources and let goes from our wicked judicial system that only seeks to oppress us. Don't put money in their pockets anymore. Instead, it's going to be in yours. The scripture says that when we don't follow the Most High's laws, that our basket and our store will be as if it has a hole in the bottom of it. You imagine going shopping and your cart had a hole in the bottom of it, and everything you put in there just goes away, but you still have to pay for it. That's what's going on with our people, and it's not going to be like that when you stop celebrating Christmas. And that's that one. That's the heaviest one to hit, because we just read two things last week and the week before that. We read that Christmas is one of the top 5 killers on the planet, right behind blood pressure and heart problems. Christmas is one of them, because people get really, really antsy and crazy at this time of the year. A lot of deaths happen around this time of the year. That is not a coincidence. You understand? So we got to continue to come back into our culture, celebrate the Feast of Dedication, celebrate the the Hanukkah, like we just said, or the Passover events, the Feast of First Fruits. Oh, that's another one I might have to show you too. Oh, you thought the Native Americans weren't following those things? Check this out. I'm gonna give you a bonus one just so you can see what I'm talking about. This right here, I love showing this one right here. I brought this out on our TikTok channel. I'm getting ready to drop some more heavy material soon. This right here is so heavy, what I'm about to read. This is about the Native Americans right here. It says, time is reckoned after the manner of the Hebrews. They distinguish the spring, summer, autumn, and winter. The latter is called Kotah by the Cherokees, as by the Hebrews. The years are numbered by one of its divisions, for they have no name for a year. We only recognize months. We didn't have names for years. Understand? Like the Israelites, they count the year by months or moons. They divide the day like them by the sun coming out, midday, and the sun being dead. They also speak of the midnight and the cock crowing. Their ecclesiastical year begins with the new moon of the vernal equinox, according to Mosaic instruction. To the first appearance of every new moon, they pay great regard. What is that? That's the high holy. That's the Sabbath day. That lines right up with when we have a new month, because we recognize those moons as a way to recognize the months. That doesn't mean we go and worship the dang thing. You know what I'm saying? We just use that as a tool. The Most High gave us these things so that we know what time of the year to harvest food, what time of the year to celebrate certain things that we're supposed to keep track of every single year. This is important to know, because this right here is the real math. This is the real scientific know-how and wisdom that our ancestors had, that the Native Americans had before they before they went and converted us into Catholicism, and we lost all those virtues. We lost a lot of those wise things that we had built in us, those things we passed along from generation to generation. It says, to the first appearance of every new moon, they pay a great regard and name the seasons from the planting and ripening of the fruit. The green-eared moon is the most sacred when the first fruits are sanctified by being offered up. That's the Feast of the First Fruits right there, y'all. It's talking about that in Native American culture, man. And that is proof, further proof that we are the real Israelites that the Bible is talking about. And that is just an example of one of the tribes. But we also read earlier that they were saying that these tribes from North, Central, and South America, talking about the Native Americans and the indigenous peoples that you now consider as Hispanics and Mayans and Argentinians and Colombians and Brazilians and Puerto Ricans and Cubans, they are from the same father. They are from the same tribal family. History is saying that. And our oppressor likes to hide that from us. but it's no longer going to be hidden from us, because we're going to bring out more and more of these examples of books that are saying this aspect of history is true. And then we're also going to use the Bible to show that because we haven't been staying with that culture, because we fell away from that culture, we're going to continue to get punished and downtrodden and beaten until our life is no longer something that we even want to live no more. For those of you Israelites that are out there that know that you're an Israelite that is going through pain and suffering, brothers in the ISUPK are ready and willing to help, willing to counsel, willing to give guidance, willing to stand up for your spirit, because nobody else has in this place. It's time for us to come together and be as one nation under the Most High, and not a part of this wicked kingdom. Let's read that. Let's get the next precept here. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Okay, so when it's talking about the Most High was going to scatter us, this is again something that was spoken to Moses right after we left the land of Egypt. And so when we were warned about this, we may not have even known of this side of the globe that we're on right now, where my feet are stepping place on right now. But Moses was told even to the other side of the globe back then, what the scriptures refers to as Arsareth and the Apocrypha. This is the land that we moved to over here. And even here, we're made to serve our enemies for not following the Most High's laws. It does not get more direct than that, because, again, it says, when we were reading, it says that the Native American people were the original people of this side of the globe. And what did we just read in Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64? It says that the Lord will scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other. We came over here first, but now we're scattered amongst all the people that have came to oppress us here on this side of the globe. Even on this side of the globe, which is completely opposite of where we were when we were told this message thousands of years ago. It says, thou shalt serve, says, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. You're living that prophecy today, black man, Hispanic man, when you're singing and dancing in the church, and you're wearing that cross around your neck, which represents that wood that Christ was killed on. When you're trapped in prison and you're forced and you're swayed to follow Islam, a trash religion. I'll just say it like that: a trash religion where you worshiping a stone, a rock. When you pray around a rock and circle around a rock and kiss the rock and kneel to the rock, you worshiping a rock. Okay, that's Islam right there. That's not worshiping the Most High. They just tried to make a poor plagiarism of the Bible. That's what Islam was. And the Most High prophesied to Moses. He said that we were going to be doing this all the way across the planet when we didn't keep his laws. So you have no choice, man. You have to come back to these laws, statutes, and commandments. You have to continue to follow the dietary laws, the ceremonial laws, the social laws, all the things that make up what our society was, because we were trying to follow them, but we were not unified. We were not unified like the way we will be now. We are in the ISUPK because we are unifying all the tribes, all 12 of them. And if you are not in the ISUPK, you are not in the truth. And that is a fact, because any brother or sister that tries to claim this knowledge traces this learning back to this school. It's where it comes from. It's where it thrives in. This is where the brothers have oil in their lamps. This is where brothers' flames do not burn out. This is where brothers can come out of poverty and slavery or whatever it is that they deal with in their day-to-day life and become great and become strong again and have their minds rebuilt to think for themselves now. But in doing so, they are collectively agreeing with the unity of the brotherhood, collectively unifying with the law of the scriptures. And before you realize it, that's the spirit of the Most High in you, giving you the courage to stand up and be different from everybody else. When are you going to gain that courage and stand up and stay strong and not actually falling prey to the distractions that this place continuously bombards us with every single day? You understand what I'm saying? Let's finish this up. Verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you, meaning no man shall save you. The transatlantic slave trade and the manifest destiny was followed suit with 100 million so-called black people that were killed during that time frame of slavery. 77 million Native American Indians slaughtered during the conquest of America. That's the real Holocaust right there. That's the real prophecy of the Bible unfolding in our history, in our records that we read about when we were growing up. And now we have the clarity that it is talking about the Israelites, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, and that these are the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. And in doing so, continuously getting more and more specific into each and every tribe. This is something that is definitely on the table. We have scholars in the school that are continuously spending day and night to make sure that we have all the tools and lessons and preparations that we need to have the knowledge of the truth. So that there isn't no doubt in your mind that this is in fact talking about Israel. That there's no doubt in your mind that we are here because the Most High ordained it to be this way. That the troubles that you're going through are because the Most High is set for you to deal with these curses, for our backsliding and our wickedness. But also that the Most High gave us the chance to come back to the fold and wake up to what we're supposed to be doing, to wake up to our true heritage and give away this wicked Babylonian heritage of having to celebrate their customs and celebrate their gods. Because when they converted us to their false religions, they set themselves over us as their God, as their ruling oppression. And that right there is why we need to come back to our original culture. Because when we do that, it's a game changer. It changes everything. This whole world's going to change. And it already is starting. From the coronavirus to the Wall Street turmoil, to the economy falling apart, to animal die-offs in the ocean, food shortages and plagues. The Most High is in control over all these things, and he's orchestrating and setting the narrative because he's starting to see that some of us are beginning to awaken. And those of you that are beginning to awaken can fine-tune that awakeness and being in the school, and being in the original school that set the tone on how to live under the Most High righteously and correctly. This time around, we're going to get things done right. And under the leadership of the Israelite School and Universal Practical Knowledge, we will not let you fail. We'll give you everything that you need to make sure that you can also survive in these times. One more scripture that we're going to get, and that's going to end it. We're going to get Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 1. Let me get that right quick. Again, we're going to Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 1. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 900. Again, we're going to Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 1. And it reads, gather yourselves together. Yea, gather together. O nation not desired. Yes, right. Our people are not desired in our nation. We're just, the only thing we're wanting for is an idea to steal off of. The only thing we're wanting this society is to entertain them as they get older, where their bodies are falling apart. And they just want to watch us tear our bodies up for their enjoyment. It's no different than Rome. It's no different when you're watching the NFL and in the NBA, watching brothers give their life and body over until the age of 40, till they can't do it no more. This is a nation that they don't desire us at their workplaces. They don't desire us at their high-paying jobs to sit at their tables. They do not desire us to be around them. That's why they put us in cages at the border. That's why they shipped them to Haiti instead of bringing them in at the border of Del Rio. This is what they do. They don't desire us. And heck, we have rarely even desired each other. From the division that you see amongst our communities, from blacks and Hispanics being at odds with one another, that will be a thing of the past. Because the book of Zephaniah in the scriptures ordained that Israel come back together. And that these laws, statutes, and commandments were set to find success for us when we keep these laws. Again, it says, gather together, O nation not desired, before the decree bring forth, before the day pass as the chaff, before the fierce day of the Lord's anger come upon you. That's right, because we need to come back to these. We need to come back to this before the end happens, before the day pass as the chaff. You know what a chaff is? You know the term chaff flare. When you see a fighter jet let its flares, it looks like fire. The day of the Lord is like fire. That's why it says the day pass as the chaff. I mean, the day is going to go by. It's going to look like this. That's why he's saying gather together before that day occurs. It says, before the fierce anger of the Lord come upon you, before the day of the Lord's anger come upon you. Seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be ye shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. And we'll end it on that, because what we got to understand is on the day of the Lord's anger, that's what we want to avoid. And because we had our culture that we can return to, the Most High will make sure that we are protected in the day that of his wrath. You understand? And this is why we coming into it, because ultimately keeping our laws, statutes, and commandments will save your life, will prevent you from the destruction. It'll prevent you from having to deal with the hardship that comes from those curses that the Most High puts on us that you see every single day. Countless examples of these things. We talked about our women being kidnapped. We talked about our men having to deal with slaveries every single day, barely having enough time to see their families, barely having enough money to put foods on the table, and still being the first to be profiled by the police to be thrown in prison. We got the odds stacked against us, Israel, so we ought to come together before the day of the Lord. So with that, we are the ISUPK. Started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. In 1969, we are under Commanding General Yohana. We are here to teach the truth of the Bible, that blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians are the lost 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. According to these curses, according to these precepts that we read today about the curses and also about the blessings, and then bringing examples out of how we were following the law, attempting to keep God's laws in history. Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge is here to make sure that you have everything that you need to understand these prophecies, to understand the history, and that we could continue to move forward and building our nation once again. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get the security announcements, and we go end it on that. Give me 1 second to get that ready. locked here. 1 sec. Let me get the security announcements real quick. All right, no sweat. All right, we're going to say the prayers. Actually, we got 3 of them. We got a couple of them that we're going to do. First, we're going to do the power prayer. Go ahead, Sar, turn and face the east. We're going to say the power prayer in the ancient Hebrew. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Baba Kusha, Nathan Lanawa, Haka, Lara Pa'a, Kau Makala, Kau Marawa, Haka, Latahar, Hamatazarayam, Haka, Lahaquium, Hamathium, Haka, Arakawa, Hatama'ala, Lagarashan, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Tawada, Aman. What we said was, Lord, in the name of Yahweh Shai, please give us the power to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease, the power to cleanse the lepers, the power to raise the dead, the power against unclean spirits, to cast them out, in the name of Yahweh Shai. Thank you, so be it. Again, that was the power prayer. All right. Next, we're going to have the rank and structure prayer. Barakatah Yahweh, Wa Yahweh Shai, Wamiaka Allah, Wa Allahayim, Matazad Ya'ah, Alawap Yahana, Ha Alawapium, Ha Saranyam, Ha Kotazayanyam, Ha Ha Yayalyam, Wa Ha Akwatyan, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, the water Aman. What we said was, bless you, Yahweh, and Yahweh Shai, and Michael, and the angels, commanding General Yohana, the generals, the captains, the officers, the troopers, and the sisters. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you. So be it. 1 sec. All right, we're going in on that. All right, we're going to give one courtesy salute to the brothers, Benevision, Amadim Shabbat, Amajim, Barak, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai Barakatham, Yadi Matah. I'm going to start turning face the sisters for one courtesy salute. Benevision, Amadim Shabbat, Amadim, Barak, Yahweh Shamar Alathan Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Yadi Matah. Class dismissed.
Yeah. I stay away from the streets and the trouble to get in. Trying to stay strong in this world full of sin, but they want to bring us down, they want to see us win. They want to kill us all, Lord, tell me, can I live? Can a nigga live? Can I live? Can a nigga live? Lord, tell me, can I live? I know the hatred's deeper than the color of your skin. So can I live? Can a nigga live? Can I live? Can a nigga live? Lord, tell me, can I live? Know the hatred's deeper than the color of your skin. Can I live?
Never KKK. Land of the good, smoke so much slaves. And I'm just trying to be great. Tell me, how can I live with this drama every day? I'm a light, I'm a beam in this darkness. It seems that real life is a nightmare. Can I live my dreams on this earth? Since I was young, I realized I had a destiny bigger than the fiction that's disguised what was best for me. Better than the hate and all the lies that lead to death of me. As a place to sleep and hypnotized since elementary. Thought it was my skin, but studied something that was new to me. They hate because of what my ancient ancestors used to be. Healers, teachers, deities, not all of them were kings and queens. Our nature was natural, not supernatural. Now they call it magic and voodoo, that shit ain't practical. All the roots connected, always more to learn about, you know. Don't let the shit go over your head. Same snakes up in the garden, but the skin just shed. They'll always try to convince you that it's all in your head. Just know you gotta be better before you hit your bed. I stay away from the streets and the troubles to get in. Trying to stay strong in this world full of sin, but they wanna bring us down, they don't wanna see us win. Trying to kill us all, Lord, tell me, can I live? Can a nigga live? Tell me, can I live? Can a nigga live? Lord, tell me, can I live? I know the hate is deeper than the color of our skin. Can I live? Can a nigga live? Lord, tell me, can I live? Can a